All right, let's get this started. Welcome, team, to this week's open hours. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Andrew Connolly. I'm the founder at The Longevity Coach, and each week, more to force myself to do content than anything else, I sort of aggregate all the questions I get from our clients over the last 7 days, and I answer them for you here. So, I always like to kick off with sort of what's been at the front of my mind for the last 7 days. And on two separate occasions, in completely different contexts. One, I was talking to our most recent work experience student. She's just finishing off her certificate 3 and 4 in personal training, Rachel. And the other was speaking to one of our newer clients. So she's just finished her 6-week foundation program and she's transitioning onto a membership, and I was chatting to her about that, and both of them said exactly the same thing in completely different contexts, and that was you need to choose your hard. And I love that, and it makes sense as to why someone transitioning from the 6-week program into a membership and someone that has gone through their work experience with us sort of shares that mentality that really hits home with me, because things are challenging, life is tough, and we need to be able to take ownership of that, because if we don't, then the hard we have to deal with is going to be forced upon us. So in those two people's settings, one was having to deal with the balance of university and work and fitting in exercise and everything else in between, so that balance, and the other was young child, new job, and if you want to be able to prioritize anything, it comes with its own challenges and sacrifices. Nothing comes for free. There's always trade-offs, and if you choose not to prioritize exercise, for example, and your own health, that's fine. Life will be pretty cruisy and easy for you for a little while, but eventually it will catch up. You'll have to give up on opportunities and forego things that matter to you in the future. So really, you're just delaying the hard of waking up early and going to the gym, or the hard of saying no to a late night, or the hard of cooking your own more nutritious food than getting the easy Uber Eats. That hard just gets replaced with not being able to go on the holiday when you're 70 years old, or being limited to just a cruise, or worst case scenario, being put into a nursing home and having to spend the last 5 years of your life isolated there. So we don't really get to choose between easy and hard, and comfortable and uncomfortable. We just pick when it's going to happen. And that's a really unfortunate, but at the same time, it's the beauty of life. Most of the most rewarding aspects of life do come with its own challenges. And hey, I'm staring down the barrel of another child. My wife and I are less than 3 weeks away from welcoming another little burrito. And that is definitely going to be hard, but it's a choice. And I think when you take ownership of the difficult things in your life, they don't necessarily become easier per se, but they become more tolerable, and you can see the long game and the silver lining, and take positives from it. So whatever it is that is challenging you in your life, physically, emotionally, mentally, take ownership of it and realize that life's not going to be without its challenges, and you just get to choose those challenges. If it's not worth the sacrifice now, you better be sure it's going to be worth the sacrifice later. So there's my little 2 cents for the week. It was just interesting that in two completely different contexts, two different people said, you've just got to choose your hard. And I was like, yes, you do. So let's move to this week's questions. The serial offenders, as usual, have entered in their questions for us. All right, so a question from Sharon. Do I need to be drinking electrolyte supplements during my workouts? What is the sort of value of electrolyte supplements? There's so many of these, Dr. Hydrolyte. There's plenty of them. Lots of podcasts. Like here, I've got my Element is another one that sort of sponsors so many podcasts. So the truth about electrolytes, well, I would say my opinion on electrolytes rather, is 99% of people don't need them. You would need to replenish your salts, which are what your electrolytes are, if you are doing intense exercise for a prolonged period of time. So my understanding is that most of the research around endurance sport, so things that last longer than sort of 60 minutes, say, is that athletes are losing on average somewhere between 500 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium. So basically like up to a gram of sodium with intense exercise. So that's like profusely sweating. And they do need to be supplementing electrolytes. So if you're doing the Kona Ironman, you do need to be taking in salts, and there's sort of a correlation between salts and cramps, but not necessarily causation there. But yes, if you were doing endurance sport, especially sweaty in a hot, humid environment, you should be supplementing with electrolytes. There is no perfect electrolyte blend, so any supplement company that is telling you like we have the perfect blend of sodium and potassium, magnesium, that is completely unique to you. So if you were trying to win the Tour de France, you'd do a thing called a sweat study, which basically means they get you to sweat in a lab. They collect your sweat in a little jar. It's fun and it's gross. But then they would go through it and see how much sodium you personally lost and how much potassium and how much. Your balance will be completely unique to you. Not everyone's sweat is identical. There isn't just sweat. So if you were trying to win the Tour de France, then they would formulate you personally a electrolyte mix of those salts that replenish your body. The idea that this one particular company has the perfect electrolyte blend is just, it's impossible, because everyone's salt mix in their sweat is different. So if you were to do an endurance sport, is to sweat a lot, any of them are basically going to be much of a muchness. Any of the sports drinks have electrolytes in them, and that should be sufficient enough. If you're not sweating the house down on a regular basis, you don't really need to be supplementing with electrolytes, especially if you've got a balanced diet and there's enough salts in your diet. But with that said, if you struggle to drink enough water and you just add a little bit of these electrolyte mixtures that have some flavoring in them at some stage in the day, just to make drinking more enjoyable, more palatable, then I'm all for it. It's probably better to have a slight electrolyte mix that gets you to drink some extra water over the course of the day than it is to be drinking fruit juice or soft drinks, or even the diet soft drinks with sort of the numerous chemicals they have in them. So if for no other reason you just want to drink more water and you add in one of those little sachets of electrolyte, yeah, power to you. It's not really going to be much of a downside. It's expensive. It's going to add up and you're just going to wee it out. But keep in mind, if you have high blood pressure or sort of any problems with your kidneys or liver, then just be mindful. I would probably maybe ask your doctor, like, what do you think if I was to just do one of these little electrolyte sachets on a regular basis? But I can see that if you just want to drink more water, then maybe it's a way to make it more palatable. So there you go. You don't need electrolytes. Most of us never need electrolyte supplements. If you do, then they're all much of a muchness. And just be careful if you're just taking them for the novelty of it. A question from Leslie, and this one I am 100% going to do a separate post about. Leslie sent me a video of Stacy Sims. Love a good Stacy Sims video, where she's basically, here we go, Leslie, she's on a podcast and she's saying that, to summarize, things like Soul Cycle or Barry's Boot Camp, where you're just kind of working hard, she likes to describe it as sort of like moderate intensity interval training, is completely pointless, and it makes you tired and your cortisol will spike and all this other jazz. And if you were to do any aerobic exercise, I'm paraphrasing here, but you really want to do high intensity interval training, but that means basically 30 seconds flat out with 2 to 3 minutes of recovery, trying to reach your maximum heart rate. And Leslie's sort of alluding to like, hey, wait a second, Andrew, does that mean that the circuits we do, that is sort of like 1 minute on, 30 seconds off multiple times, or 45 seconds on, or even our cycle classes, which might be 2-minute efforts, 3-minute efforts, 5-minute efforts, 20-second efforts, are all of them wrong because Stacy said otherwise? My first thought about this is I hate any advice on the internet that just scares people out of doing any exercise whatsoever. So let's accept that most people do no exercise, none, zero. Like the average person does zero exercise. If they go on the internet and they're like, this expert says I shouldn't be doing group exercise classes because they're dangerous and they'll spike my cortisol, or there's just no point in doing moderate intensity exercise, or I've got to go for they're just going to be validated like, there you go, that's why I do no exercise. Any exercise is better than no exercise. 100%. Done. With that said, if I'm going to give Stacy the benefit of the doubt and she's trying to say, like, based on the research, doing high intensity interval training basically means get your heart rate up towards max for 30 seconds and then have a decent recovery and do that multiple times. It is my unpopular opinion that most people that do exercise, keep in mind most people don't exercise at all, but the people that do exercise, most people are not willing to work hard enough. They are not willing to suffer the level of discomfort of going hard enough to get to their max heart rate to genuinely do high intensity interval training. The thing people don't realize is like the research of the Tabata method was done on elite athletes. So if you tell an elite athlete, work as hard as you possibly can, do you know what they do? They work as hard as they possibly can because for whatever reason, people like that are built that way. They enjoy it. They get a satisfaction out of it, and it's a practice behavior. If you tell a normal person that's starting to exercise to work as hard as they possibly can and get their max heart rate, they'll work kind of hard. It will get uncomfortable. They'll pull back a little bit. They'll pace themselves, and it won't be truly high intensity interval training. That doesn't mean it's wrong. That doesn't mean it's pointless. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be doing it. But based on what Stacy's saying around the research says that it should be max heart rate for 30 seconds and then have to... Cool. Stacy's not wrong. Dare I say Stacy's wrong. But the reality where sort of the rubber meets the road on training general population in a normal commercial gym or a personal training studio is that the average person is not going to work that hard. They just don't have the willingness, the tolerance, the appetite for that. So yes, if you are willing to destroy yourself, and I mean like snot coming out of your nose and like you feel nauseous and like there's a burning in the back, like down here, there's a burning in here for like the rest of your day. And if you haven't experienced it, you don't know what your max really is. But unless you're willing to go that far, then you're not doing it properly. So doing something is always better than nothing. Any exercise is better than no exercise. If you are willing to do multiple hours of exercise every week, then we can talk about what the optimized training program is, like how many times you should do strength training, how many times should you do low intensity aerobic exercise, sort of your zone 2, and how many times should you really go up to that anaerobic threshold and hit your max heart rate. But if you're only exercising once or twice a week, then do whatever you enjoy, whatever you can keep consistent. And my opinion is that it should involve some strength and it should involve some sort of aerobic huffing and puffing. Power to you. Do something, whatever you enjoy, consistently for a very long time. Next question sort of goes along this physiological line. Jen, at the end of her cycle class this week, basically asked, Why does it hurt so much at around that 60 to 90 second mark? She was doing 3-minute efforts. And why is it that at around that 2-minute mark does it hurt so much? And that is a feature, not a bug. That is not anything wrong with Jen. It's not because Jen isn't fit enough. If you're just looking at the physiology of it, there's the cardiovascular system. There's exercise that they call anaerobic and aerobic. So anaerobic basically means like without oxygen, anaerobic, and aerobic means with oxygen. Physiologically, we have these energy systems that last for a certain period of time before they switch over. There's a lot of crossover, but here's a physiology lesson for you in the space of 30 seconds from someone that isn't an expert in exercise science. But something's going to last for about 10, 15 seconds, and then something lasts for around 60-ish seconds. And then the energy system starts to switch over for the thing that's going to go for hours upon hours. You could do a 24-hour race with your aerobic system, if not more. The problem is when things are switching over, it's just unpleasant because it's sort of this gray area, this zone of confusion for your body. That's all to say that at around that 60-second mark, you've gone from sprinting where your body's just been flooded with, let's call it lactic acid, but the real science just says it's hydrogen ions and lactate's actually a good thing. But for argument's sake, let's say it's lactic acid. At around that 60-second mark, you produce so much before you've gotten rid of it and before you've gotten to the oxygen system that it just sucks and there is nothing you can do about it. So you could be the fittest person on the planet, and at around that 60 to 90-second mark, it is going to hurt. You need to expect that, and you just need to sort of suffer through it, and then it does get better. So sort of it's like a second wind. I can tell you from personal experience, having rowed at the international level, every rowing race lasts approximately 6 to 7 minutes. At around the 400-meter mark, you've started the race. So at around that minute and a half, no matter how much you've warmed up, at that point you're like, oh my gosh, I am so unfit. I haven't done the right training. Like I'm having a bad day. I didn't sleep enough. I didn't eat enough. Like at that 1 minute mark, you just completely catastrophize, and everyone feels like that. It's a very unpleasant place to be. But if you keep going, you're like, hey, wait a second. No, I'm starting to get into a rhythm. I'm starting to settle down. I'm calming down. My body's getting used to it. So I'm sorry, Jen. I can't give you a fix. I can just tell you that that is completely normal. And unfortunately, you just have to suffer through it. In sort of sports that last around 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes, so rowing or track cycling and the like, they do a type of training called lactate tolerance training, which basically means you just practice tolerating it. Doesn't go away, you just get used to it, and I guess psychologically it doesn't hurt so much because you're expecting it, and this is just normal. So sorry I couldn't really help, but maybe you'll be more accepting of it next time it hits you. Next question was around smartwatches, Apple Watches, Whoops, Garmin's and the like. This was a Whoop. My Whoop says that my recovery score was low or my sleep score was poor. Should I skip my workout? Those wearables are interesting in that they provide you some kind of metric, but they don't really equate to how your body is necessarily responding. They're basically looking at a bunch of averages and then guessing based on those averages how you should be feeling. But there is, I can't tell you what the research paper was, but basically some researchers got people's sleep scores and manipulated them, and to part of the cohort, they basically said to them, you slept really, really well, regardless of how they slept. They didn't even tell, like, the actual reality was irrelevant. They told this group of people they slept really, really well, and they told this group of people they slept really, really badly, regardless of how they actually slept. And the people that were told they were slept well, they're like, yeah, I do have more energy, I do feel good, and they did better in all the little tests physically and mentally that they gave them to. And the group, they told them that their sleep score was bad, they slept badly last night, all their scores went down and their perceived level of motivation and everything, it went down too. And it's just to sort of allude to that it's far more in your head that if you get a metric, positive or negatively, you're going to sort of go down that rabbit hole. Like, oh, I do have a good recovery score, or I've got a bad recovery score. It's far better to just go by feel. So like self-regulate your intensity based off how you feel. And that's going to be off like stress levels, nutrition, menstrual cycles. All of those things play a huge part in how you actually feel. And if you feel like rubbish, I don't think you should skip a workout. You should just significantly reduce the intensity and the volume. I think it's far better to maintain a routine if that means just coming to the gym and, I don't know, sitting on the bike rather than doing the workout you were supposed to do, or just foam rolling your legs and doing some mobility work on the floor rather than doing the heavy weights. That is far better than skipping and breaking that habit and that routine. So take those wearable recovery readiness scores with a grain of salt, back to the electrolyte conversation, and just sort of go by feel. You are the expert of your body. And if you just don't feel up to pushing yourself, don't. But that doesn't mean do nothing. That just means do less, pull back, be kind to yourself, and come back and fight another day. I think having the idea that you're playing the long game, that you don't need to be summer ready, or you're not trying to lose 5 kilos in 5 weeks or anything like that, really gives you permission to dial back the intensity if that's what your body needs today. You don't need to push it because we're not in a hurry. We want to be doing this indefinitely. So, the wearables only go so far. Last question for the day. This was related to someone's knees, but it applies to shoulders, hips. My knees crunch and pop when I do squats. Is that bad? Should I not squat? And a caveat, not being a physio, but having spoken to lots of physios about this, the sounds are not important if they are not connected to obvious pain. So if you hear your knees crunching away or something clicking as you move your shoulder, that's fine as long as it's not accompanied by a sharp pain that you're like, oh, I felt something and I can hear something. That's bad. But if you're just hearing these noises, that's totally normal. I think it's called like crepitus, where there's sort of like air pockets and just a bit of friction and the like of various joints. That is not necessarily a bad thing. And what you will find is as you warm up and as you move more and sort of blood starts flowing and joints start to be lubricated, the sounds tend to disappear, or at least your perception of what you can feel with those noises starts to diminish. Physios love to say like motion is lotion, and that basically just means that the more you move, the better it's going to be. So as long as those sounds, although they can sound unpleasant and uncomfortable and you're like, oh dear, that's not good, they usually are pretty benign. They're not something to worry about. And if you sort of move through them, they disappear, or they at least don't lead to anything else. So don't be worried about the crunching or the popping as long as it doesn't hurt. If it does hurt, investigate it further. See a physio, get an X-ray or an MRI or anything that they sort of suggest. But if you're just sort of doing squats and you can hear the crunching and the popping, just keep squatting, keep lunging, keep stepping, and you'll be fine. So nothing to worry about there. So well done, team. Thank you. I always enjoy these. Make sure you drop any questions down in the comment section. I'll be back next week with more. I'll be asking people what's on the top of their mind, to go all the way back to my sort of rant for the week. Life is hard. That is a feature, not a bug. But choose your hard, embrace it, and you will have a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment when you have gotten through it, / you reap the rewards of that. So till next time, team, have a good one.